Have you ever felt that you could handle your problems alone, thinking only you could deal with something that ails at you for years? Whether you think it's shameful to people you care about or that the public could shun you if they ever found out? When it comes to stuff within this day and age, people are always dealing with baggage or secrets that they don't feel confident in telling anyone, whether that be they're wired differently or have conditions that could make others think less of them. People with variations of the lycanthropy curse are not so different with how they worry about their condition being learned by others, accidentally or otherwise. They would never say a word about it out of fear of being killed or persecuted by those with hatred in their hearts. Having a cure is not always feasible, but the symptoms, they can be managed. You just need to ensure you don't let your challenges rule your life and know to ask for help when you need it. What lies within this story you're about to hear is the tale of a boy who thought he could fight a battle within himself all on his own. He assumed he knew how to deal with a condition that is a lot more complex than a simple case of acne. He'll soon learn that the fight to stay in the driver's seat of his mind alone is not so simple. And now, Seth's Nyctothropy, so turn off your lights.
They say you can never tell anyone about the curse of being a werebat. Out of fear of being killed, ostracized, or both. I've had this curse for 5 years. I was a careless teen when I got too close to a bat, trying to help it when it was trapped in my family home. I grabbed it in the air mid-flight and its fangs pierced my hand as I threw it outside into the darkness. My vision blurred from seeing the blood coming out of the bite. But when I woke, I was in a hospital room with my hand all bandaged. My parents were worried that I could have rabies from being reckless by grabbing the bat barehanded instead of handling it with gloves. Little did any of us know that what the bat did was so much worse. At first, it started with having a sensitivity to light. But then one night, I had what seemed like a vivid dream. I'd gotten out of my home, flew into the sky, and was feeding on insects while flying, before I found myself in the backyard of my neighbor, Mr. North. He cultivated and grew an apple tree for 3 years, which had been devoured and demolished in seconds by my hands. I tried to get control of myself, but it was like I was watching this on TV in a room. My words falling on deaf ears. That was when Mr. North came out with his shotgun in hand, trying to shoot at me. But I quickly evaded and jumped onto the kind old man, roaring at him before I flew away into the darkness. I woke up finding nothing but claw marks, pieces of apple on me, and my parents looking at me disappointedly and worried. I asked them what happened, but my dad said,
"You tell me."
They then told me about how Mrs. North had discovered her husband in the backyard, having died from a heart attack, along with a shotgun and a destroyed apple tree. That was when I realized that it all was not a dream. From then on, my parents tried fruitlessly to keep me from going out at night until they could find a cure for this nightmare. But I still got out to feed on bugs and whatever fruit I came across. The creature within got more and more violent with each attempt until I got away from the house one night. I awakened in the middle of the woods and away from home. I was unsure of where I was, but it was like I was better off to ensure my parents didn't end up like Mr. North. I had to hide from the cops when venturing to places to find people who knew about stuff like lycanthropy, but for bats rather than wolves. However, I had to hide somewhere far from people when the sun began setting. When I became the bat, I had to try to resist the urge to attack people, but it kept getting harder to control each night. I remember one night when I raided a nearby grocery store for as much fruit as I could stomach. I heard a security guard coming to me, yelling something along the lines of,
"Hold it right there!"
When he saw what I was, he said,
"Oh, shit!"
I approached the man, looking to strike, but I froze and nodded no as I stepped back, not wanting to harm a civilian doing his job. I had a hard time keeping myself together as I dove for the guy, but I flew above the man to avoid hitting him, running into the section full of dairy items in the process. I flew around and above the man, like the bat stuck in my house that fateful night when I dove for him again. Only this time, he had a taser that hit me. It hurt like nothing I felt before. And I was down for what seemed like hours before I flew out of the place when I regained consciousness. I woke up in the place I set up camp in, with my head throbbing, fruit guts, and the phantom pain of that voltage going through my entire being. I knew that I would need to find someone who could help before I either lost my humanity to the darkness of these primal urges, or my family would find me and be in danger. I eventually found someone named Aaron Ritt who had a store full of toys, books, and games, but also had paraphernalia for the metaphysical for sale as well. I took a look at some crystals and a book on lycanthropy, but it was only after I considered the myriad of options for days that he took an interest in me.
"Something must be drawing you to this place since you keep coming back,"
he said. When I told him in an uneasy tone that meeting him at night wouldn't work, he told me to meet him during the weekend to talk. That was on a Thursday. That Thursday night, the curse came up once more, and I raided whatever I didn't nab from the store in town. Rather than security or a cop coming into the place, it was Mr. Ritt who came in and saw me as a big bat. He didn't try to do anything to provoke me. Instead, he simply said,
"I always wondered why you kept coming back. But something must be drawing you here. Huh, big boy?"
I was surprised by the word choice he used, like he knew what I was, as my body once again tried to strike the man. I tried and struggled to keep from hurting him and was inches away from striking his head. The man was undeterred by this, and instead grabbed 2 mangoes from what was left of that section of the store. He handed me one that I ravenously ate. He then slowly lured me out of the store with the other mango and into the nearby forest I was camping in. The bat within me disliked being seen as a pet being tempted with a toy or treat, so I smacked the fruit out of his hand before tackling and pinning him to the ground. I had trouble keeping from biting the man who was scared, but didn't try to get free or hurt me, he cautioned.
"Get a hold of yourself if you want to know how to get rid of this beast."
I backed away while trying to keep from hurting the man, before I flew far away from him. I got near the campsite I was at for days while in this town, and was trying to keep myself from going back to finish the job. I hated to wreck parts of my so-called home in the process of keeping the bat under control. I didn't want to kill anyone, not after I indirectly and unintentionally had my neighbor killed. I had to resist the urge until sunrise. Killing people just to fill my stomach with fruit and bugs was not who I was. I wasn't going to kill my family, any cops, and I certainly wasn't going to kill Aaron Ritt for trying to help me keep myself together and overcome these nightmarish impulses. It wasn't in my nature, even before I became this beast. As the sun came creeping up, and I started to revert to my human self, I caught a glimpse of Mr. Ritt, slipping into the area from hearing all my screaming and thrashing about. My vision stopped as I crashed onto the ground from exhaustion. When I awoke, I found I was in someone else's home, with bandages on my chest, arms, hands, and head. I was worried about being in this place, with how much of a harm I've been to myself and others. I then saw Aaron coming in, telling me,
"Whoa, easy there, kid. You've been out for almost an entire day. I brought you here to treat your condition."
I paused and questioned him. "What condition, sir?"
"Nyctothropy.
He replied,
A condition much like lycanthropy, but becoming a bat instead of a wolf. Some bites come with rabies, but if you're not careful, you'll get something else entirely. That's why you came into my shop, right? To look for a cure?"
I was stunned, so I quizzed, How did you know?" He bluntly stated,
I have a sibling your age. They had something like that. With you coming into my shop, looking through the merchandise, and then reports of a giant bat making a mess out of the grocery store's fruit aisle, you have the curse like they do. We tried lots of different remedies and treatments, and then we found something that worked. Vitamin C, mupirocin, and silver. I can walk you through the process of treating the condition, but only if you stick around here and follow the instructions to the letter. Once that's taken care of, you can go back to your family.
I was surprised at how prepared and calm this guy was at handling the Nyctothropy, but it made me feel like I failed at keeping myself under control. I didn't figure out a cure with how the urges and their triggers kept flooding my mind since I've been on the run. I was really afraid of how people would react to what I could do. Getting a cure became second to keeping from harming others within my feasts for fruit. Then I found this guy who was willing to help. So I asked him, "How can I ever repay you after all of this?" He simply replied,
I don't need money or favors for helping a person suffering through their battle in silence and loneliness. Kindness doesn't cost a thing.
From there, I decided to follow Aaron's instructions while staying at his place for 3 months. I was grateful that the house was a good distance away from the town, which was important for the process of treating Nyctothropy. I was even more surprised with how he had a basement that was set up like an apartment, with a bedroom, TV, bathroom, and a fridge for food. Aaron would be right by me for the first night of treatment, although that had me nervous, with how I turned into the bat and can be very violent around others getting in my way. I went into the bedroom, and when night fell, I transformed into the bat and was unfamiliar with the place, flying around, looking for a means of escape, clashing with walls. I even tried breaking down the door, but that didn't work, as Aaron called out.
Hey, don't break that, big guy.
I turned to the man and landed on the towel placed in front of him on the floor, which felt warm and made me feel calmer and tired, bringing me to my knees. He then put a blanket over me, gave me water that had some sugar in it, and then brought out that cream from earlier and applied it to my arms, hands, and head. I felt calmer while waiting out this process of letting the cream soak into me, but then I was concerned that once I got out of this warm embrace, that the thoughts and urges would come rushing back with a vengeance, and I tried to kill Mr. Ritt in order to be free again to cause havoc on myself and others once more. I needed to let my body relax and get control over it to beat this curse. 20 minutes passed, and I was led into the bathroom, where I had to use the shower to clean off the cream, and then dry off before being led into the bedroom to keep warm, eat some fruit, and sleep with lights on. After some time here, I was getting more control to allow myself to overcome the need for fruit or bugs. Aaron was really nice to me, but I was unsure of how my folks would react to me once I nipped this in the bud. They knew I was still there with how many big bat sightings and grocery store break-ins there had been. I hoped they weren't mad at me for running away from home, but I needed to accept that the traumatic events that happened were not my fault. By the 3rd month, my conversion was not as violent, and I was getting restful sleep, but I had to apply the cream myself to ensure the transformations didn't come back, or at least weren't flaring up as violently. After that, I had to work up the courage to call my parents and tell them where I was all this time, and how Mr. Ritt saved me by managing the symptoms of my Nyctothropy. I never thought about when they would arrive for me. But when they did, there were many tears of relief and joy. There was understandable anger with how I was homeless and didn't tell anyone where I was all this time, but they were glad I was safe and healthy, and I actually managed to find someone to help me with my problem. As we were leaving, Aaron cautioned us,
So let me know if the transformations come back at all, and keep at it until you're sure it's not a problem anymore.
I told him, "We will, Aaron, we will."